Wife weaponized the darkest secrets of my past against me during a fight about our son's homework, leaving our marriage in shambles. We have been married for 14 years. I truly believed we had built a stable, lasting life together, a foundation that could weather any storm. 2 incredible kids bless our home, our son, who is 12, and our daughter, who just turned 11. They are my everything. When I look at them, I feel a love that defies every definition, a feeling so vast and deep that I never would have believed it possible, certainly not from my own childhood, where that kind of love simply didn't exist. This is something my wife has always known about me, even before I could admit it aloud myself. When we first got married, she noticed I never spoke about my parents, never reminisced about childhood. She would share stories about her own upbringing, warm holidays, her parents decorating the house, those silly sibling arguments that become funny memories in hindsight. I would just smile and nod, always holding my own stories back. She said she wanted to know me, really know me, and over the years she kept gently pressing until one day, 7 years ago, she begged me to open up completely. So I did. I told her everything. I told her I was never supposed to be here, that I was the 4th child after 3 siblings, a failed contraception baby, the accident. That literal word, accident, was how my parents always described me, right to my face. It was never subtle, never hidden. It was their running joke, twisted proudly and obviously. I told her about the amusement park when I was 9, the day my parents tried to get rid of me. They left me behind on purpose. Even at that age, I knew, they expected me to panic and disappear. What they didn't expect was that I had memorized the way home. Hours later, when I walked back into the house, they pretended it was a mistake, an accident in a crowd, but I knew what it had really been. I told her about the night my father wrapped his hands around my throat. How the world closed in on the edges and I knew what was happening was something no child should ever endure. To this day, I'm not sure why he stopped. Maybe my mother walked in, maybe something inside him snapped back, but whatever it was, I survived. Barely. There was the food. How, on some nights, everyone would eat and I would just watch, not because we were poor, there was enough, always enough, but I was purposely excluded. If they got something good, they would share it only amongst themselves. I was left to watch, my stomach gnawing, pretending not to exist while listening to their laughter, and always, it was reinforced that I was the unwelcome one. My siblings started saying it too, that I was the mistake they couldn't erase. Once, my parents even casually admitted they'd planned to abort me but never got around to it, as if it were trivia, not a dagger to my already battered heart. I told her about being 10 and locked outside on a freezing winter night as punishment for something I hadn't even done. I'd shivered and cried, teeth rattling, convinced I wouldn't survive until a neighbor saw me and banged on the door until my mother let me back in. That neighbor probably saved my life. These were the things I revealed, exposing wounds that I had so carefully hidden for decades. It wasn't easy. I remember my hands shaking, that feeling of being flayed open, raw and defenseless. She hugged me afterward and told me she was glad I trusted her. She promised me, absolutely, that she'd never use these things against me, never, no matter what. Last night, she broke that promise. It started with something stupid, an argument about our son's homework. She thought I was too soft on him. I said she was being too harsh. It was one of those fights that snowballs, where you forget what started it and just want to win. And then, she looked me straight in the eyes and said maybe my father should have finished what he started that night, that I don't even deserve a family, don't deserve children. That maybe it would have been better if I hadn't survived. That I was never wanted anyway, something I'd told her myself. I froze. For a moment, I thought I must have misheard her. But she said it again. Calmly. As though she was just stating a fact. There really are no words for what that did to me. I'm not a stranger to cruelty, to being insulted, mocked, belittled. I've spent my life learning to brush off words, to let them slide. But this was unlike anything I had ever experienced. This was the one person I let into the deepest, most wounded place inside me, and she used it as a weapon. I just stood there in silence, unable even to yell. I couldn't. It felt like something essential inside me shattered in that moment. All through the rest of the night, I barely spoke. She acted as though nothing happened. I stayed in the spare bedroom and lay awake, her words ringing in my ears, overlapping with the voices of my childhood, my parents, my siblings, all those years, now joined and amplified by hers. I thought about the rage I carried as a teenager, the hope that my mother would die painfully. I thought those feelings were long buried, but last night she unearthed them and buried me under the weight of them again. I can't move past it. This morning she was cheerful, light, as if nothing in the world had gone wrong. I couldn't even look at her. Something is irrevocably broken inside me, and I honestly don't know if it can ever be fixed. Now, I sit here haunted by the thought of divorce. Or at least separation. I'm paralyzed, uncertain where to start, which lawyer to call, how to possibly explain to the children why their parents are breaking apart. Part of me wonders if I'm overreacting, if this is just a fight that went too far. But I know myself. I know I'm not overreacting. I can picture swallowing almost any other pain, pushing it down, moving on. That has been my lifelong pattern. But not this. She reached into my deepest wound and drove the knife in. All I can think is, I can't imagine ever forgetting what she said. Every word keeps replaying, and the person I trusted most turned into the person who hurt me worst. And I don't know how I could ever forgive that. Update 1. I waited until Tuesday. Through the weekend and Monday, she moved around as though nothing had happened, a little colder than usual, quick with her answers, that thin layer of irritation that made it feel like I was the cause of everything wrong. No apology. Not even a hint. Meanwhile, I carried this unbearable weight, feeling like she'd just stepped around it as if it was nothing. By Tuesday afternoon, I couldn't do it anymore. I asked her to sit down with me. The house was quiet, no distractions, just us. I told her we needed to talk about what she said during the fight, because this was not something we could just shrug off like nothing happened. I reminded her how the argument started, because I'd refused to hit our son while teaching him. I told her I don't believe in beating our kid to make him learn, and she'd pushed for it. That's where it began, and somehow it slid into this uglier, almost unrecognizable mess. I asked her why she would use what I had told her in confidence against me. I told her she'd begged me to open up years ago, had promised she would keep it safe. I asked her why she hugged me back then if this was where it would end up. At first, she was still and stiff. She looked straight at me and said she didn't know what else she was supposed to do at the time. She said she just tried to act normal, to be supportive, because she didn't know how to handle what I'd told her. She said she hadn't realized how heavy it all was until much later. Her voice was so even, like she was just going down a list of facts. I told her that the promise mattered. That it wasn't about a slip in anger, that it was about her reaching for the exact things I'd given her in trust and turning them straight against me. I pressed her again. Why? That's when she finally admitted it. She told me she had lost some respect for me after I opened up to her. My stomach dropped. I asked her to explain what that meant. She said it wasn't a single detail, not one thing I'd told her, but the whole picture. She said she'd always seen me as solid, as someone who could carry weight without ever bending. The person she could lean on. But after I shared everything, she couldn't stop seeing the breaks under the surface. She said some parts of my story made me look fragile to her. Some of the darker pieces, the way the years sat inside me, they gave her an uneasy feeling she couldn't shake. Seeing me tear up, so nervous and a wreck, made her look at me differently. She even used the word ick. She said sometimes, remembering those things got in the way of how she saw me. I asked her if that meant she thought less of me for surviving. She said it wasn't about surviving, but about how it changed what she expected from me. She admitted she built up an image of me that didn't include those wounds, and once she knew, she couldn't reconstruct that image. I asked why did she hug me then, why did she tell me she wanted to know every corner of me? She said she didn't know what else to do, she didn't want to punish me for telling the truth. She said holding me and saying it was okay felt like the only decent response at the time, though inside, she had already started to see me differently. I let that settle. Then I asked the harder thing. Why, in that moment, did she use those things? She told me she just couldn't control herself then. She reached for what she knew would hurt most. She said she regretted it, that it would never happen again. I thought about how it might look to someone else, maybe I dumped too much on her. The truth, though, is that I never once sat her down and unloaded everything at once. I gave her my story the way she asked for it, in pieces, one at a time, only when she pressed me. If she wanted to know something, I answered. I never overshared, never volunteered random details. Even then, she probably only ever heard a fraction of what I actually live with. I've done the work in therapy. I wasn't handing her my pain because I couldn't carry it, I was giving it to her because she insisted she wanted to know it. She begged and swore she could handle it, that she wanted to carry it with me. I trusted her. That's why the betrayal burns the way it does. It wasn't me blurting out confessions uncontrollably, it was me giving her pieces of myself she'd asked to see, and her later using those pieces like knives. It feels like I handed her my own heartbeat because she claimed she wanted to hold it, and then watched her drive a blade straight through it. After she'd told me all of that, I just sat there for a long while. The truth behind everything was finally spoken, but it didn't settle right. I wasn't shocked anymore, just resigned. Again I wondered, did I overwhelm her after all? But the truth won't change, never once did I offer more than she specifically asked for. She heard what she wanted to hear and probably only a quarter of the weight I truly carry. Why was she so intent on me being open and emotionally vulnerable then? I told her I didn't think I could just go back to how we were. I said the foundation was cracked in a way that I couldn't ignore, no matter how much I might want to. I told her maybe the only way forward was to separate amicably, quietly, before things got any worse. I said I didn't think I could look at her the same, not after knowing she could turn something so personal into a weapon. That's when her whole tone changed. The firmness she'd had when explaining herself dropped away and was replaced with something desperate, almost panicked. She asked me not to say that, said she didn't want a divorce. She told me she still loved me, that nothing she'd done in anger was bigger than the family we'd built, and she couldn't imagine splitting the kids between us or having them grow up in two houses. She said leaving would scar them more than anything. I told her love isn't supposed to look like tearing each other apart with the sharpest words possible. She said she knew, and promised again it wouldn't happen anymore. She circled back again and again. We have kids, they need us together, no matter what we need to fix this without breaking up the family. She didn't cry, but there was a desperation in her voice, as if she could feel me slipping away and was trying to pull me back by any means. She didn't apologize again for what she'd said, not directly. She just kept repeating that it would never happen again, and that I shouldn't throw everything away over one mistake. Right now, I haven't made any final decision. My mind swings back and forth. Part of me wonders if the damage is too deep and whether I would just be lying to myself if I pretended otherwise. I feel like I'm carrying a secret weight every day, and I'm caught in this suffocating gray area where nothing feels right anymore. Every time I look at her, I can't help but wonder if I'll ever really see her the same again. The trust that once was there feels shaken, and sometimes I catch myself studying her face, searching for that person I thought I knew so well. But there's another side of me that hesitates, because leaving isn't just about us, it's about the life we've built, the kids who would be thrown into a storm they never asked for, the years we've woven together into what I thought was a future. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't leaning more toward ending things than salvaging them, but there's something that still makes me pause. I'm not there yet. It's like every day I wake up and carry this heaviness, this sense that I have to choose between guarding my own heart and not being the one to tear my family down the middle. Some moments, it's like the path in front of me is bright and clear, I think I know exactly what I have to do. And then the doubt creeps in and makes me question if that would actually make things better, or just different. It's exhausting, this back and forth, feeling strong one minute and lost the next. But even if I don't have an answer yet, putting these thoughts out in the open and thinking through every angle helps me feel a little less alone in the mess. Update 2. 3 weeks have passed since our conversation, and I thought things might settle into some kind of new normal. They haven't. She's been trying, I'll give her that, making my coffee in the morning, asking about my day, being extra attentive to the kids. But there's this performative quality to it all that makes my skin crawl. Like she's following a script titled How to Be a Good Wife After You've Destroyed Your Husband. Every gesture feels calculated, every kindness measured. And maybe that's unfair of me, but I can't shake the feeling that she's trying to manage me rather than actually repair what she broke. The real problem started last Thursday. I was picking up our daughter from soccer practice when another parent, Lisa, approached me. Lisa's always been friendly, her son is in the same grade as ours, and our kids have played together for years. But this time, she looked uncomfortable. "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" she asked, glancing around like she was checking for eavesdroppers. I followed her to the side of the field. That's when she told me something that made my blood run cold. "I don't know if I should be saying this, but..." she started, wringing her hands. "A few weeks ago, at the coffee shop downtown, I overheard your wife talking to someone on the phone. She was laughing about something. About you." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" Lisa looked genuinely pained. "She was saying something about how you broke down crying when you told her about your childhood. She was imitating the way you sounded. Making fun of it. I only heard part of it, but she said something like you should have seen him, completely falling apart like a little boy. And then she laughed." I felt the world tilt. "Are you sure it was her?" "I'm positive." I almost went over to say hi, but then I heard what she was saying and I left. I've been debating whether to tell you ever since. I thanked Lisa, somehow managing to keep my voice steady, but inside I was disintegrating. The drive home was a blur. All I could think about was my wife, the person I'd trusted with my deepest wounds, sharing them as entertainment with whoever was on the other end of that phone call. That night, I couldn't even look at her. She kept asking if I was okay, and I just nodded and went to bed early. But I didn't sleep. I lay there thinking about every interaction we'd had since our big conversation, wondering how many other people knew my story now, wondering if she'd been sharing my pain as gossip this whole time. Friday morning, I couldn't take it anymore. After the kids left for school, I confronted her. "Who have you told?" I asked without preamble. She looked up from her laptop, confused. "Told what?" "About what I shared with you. About my childhood. Who else knows?" Her face went very still. "What are you talking about?" I told her about Lisa, about what she'd overheard. I watched my wife's expression cycle through surprise, embarrassment, and then something that looked almost like annoyance. "That's taken completely out of context," she said finally. "Context? What possible context makes it okay to mock me to someone else?" She closed her laptop with more force than necessary. "I wasn't mocking you. I was talking to my sister about how hard it's been for me, dealing with everything you told me. I was venting, by imitating how I sounded? By laughing about it? I wasn't laughing at you, I was laughing because sometimes when something is overwhelming, you laugh. It's a coping mechanism." I stared at her. "You were coping with my trauma by making fun of me?" "That's not what I was doing." But even as she denied it, I could see the guilt in her eyes. She knew exactly what Lisa had heard, and she knew how it sounded. "How many people know?" I asked again. She was quiet for a long moment. "Just my sister." "Just your sister what? What exactly did you tell her?" "I told her some of what you shared with me. I needed someone to talk to." "Which parts?" Another long silence. "Most of it." I felt something inside me break all over again, different from the first time but just as devastating. "You promised me. You looked me in the eyes and promised you'd never use it against me." "This isn't using it against you. This is me trying to process. You turned my pain into a story for your sister's entertainment. You imitated me breaking down. How is that not using it against me?" She started crying then, but it felt manipulative rather than genuine. I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't have, but I was so confused and overwhelmed and I didn't know how to handle it all. So you decided to mock me instead? I wasn't mocking you. But we both knew she was lying. The worst part is what came next. Through her tears, she admitted that her sister had advised her to be careful about staying with someone who had so much baggage. That maybe I wasn't as stable as she'd thought. That she should consider whether this was the kind of person she wanted raising her children. Her sister. Someone who's never even met me, making judgments about my fitness as a father based on the stories of childhood abuse that my wife had shared as gossip. I left the house, just walked out and drove around for 3 hours, trying to wrap my head around this new betrayal. It wasn't just that she'd broken her promise, it was that she'd turned my most vulnerable moments into a source of entertainment and then let someone else use them to question my worth as a human being. When I came back, she was waiting for me. She'd clearly spent the time preparing her defense. I know you're hurt, she started before it even closed the front door, but you have to understand, I never meant for it to hurt you. I was just trying to figure out how to handle everything. By gossiping about it? By talking to my sister, who I trust. Just like you probably talked to your therapist about it. The comparison was so absurd it actually made me laugh, but not in a good way. You think talking to your sister for entertainment is the same as working through trauma with a licensed professional? That's not why I talked to her. Then why did you imitate the way I sounded? Why were you laughing? She didn't have an answer for that. We've barely spoken since Friday. The kids have started noticing. Our daughter asked me yesterday if mommy and I were fighting. I told her we were just working through some grown-up things, but I could see the worry in her eyes. I've been sleeping in the spare room again. Every time I look at my wife, all I can think about is her sitting in some coffee shop, laughing as she reenacts the most painful moments of my life for her sister's benefit. And then coming home and playing the supportive wife, asking how my day was and making my coffee. I don't think I can come back from this. The first betrayal was bad enough, but this feels worse somehow. She didn't just weaponize my pain and anger, she commodified it. Turned it into entertainment. And then lied about it until she was caught. I've started looking into lawyers, not because I've made a final decision, but because I need to understand what my options are. What custody would look like. How to protect my kids through this process if it comes to that. The hardest part is that I still love her. Or at least, I love who I thought she was. But I'm starting to realize that person might never have existed at all. Update 3. It's been 6 weeks since I found out about the coffee shop conversation, and I thought I'd hit rock bottom. I was wrong. Last Tuesday, I finally met with a lawyer, a woman named Margaret who came highly recommended. Professional, direct, no nonsense. She walked me through the basics, custody arrangements, asset division, what to expect if things got contentious. I left feeling like I had some control back, like maybe there was a path forward that didn't involve me drowning in this mess forever. But when I got home that evening, something felt off. My wife was in the kitchen, but she had this strange energy, nervous, almost excited. She kept glancing at me sideways while she made dinner, like she was waiting for something. "How was your day?" she asked, but there was something in her tone. Like she already knew. "Fine," I said, watching her carefully. "Just work stuff." She nodded, but I caught her checking her phone. Then checking it again 5 minutes later. After dinner, once the kids were in bed, she cornered me in the living room. "We need to talk," she said, and my blood went cold because those words coming from her had never meant anything good. She sat down across from me, and I could see her hands shaking slightly. "I know you went to see a lawyer today." My stomach dropped. "How do you? I hired a private investigator." She said it so matter-of-factly, like she was commenting on the weather. 3 weeks ago. I needed to know what you were planning." I stared at her, trying to process what I was hearing. "You had me followed?" "I had to protect myself. Protect the kids. You've been so distant, so angry, and I knew you were planning something. I just needed to know what." The violation of it hit me like a physical blow. "You hired someone to spy on me." "To gather information," she corrected, like the distinction mattered. "And it's a good thing I did, because now I know exactly what you're planning to do to this family." "What I'm planning to do?" "You're the one who made a mistake," she interrupted. "One mistake that you're using to justify destroying everything we've built. Do you have any idea what a divorce will do to our kids? What it will do to me?" I stood up, pacing to the window. "This isn't just about one mistake anymore. You violated my trust, mocked my trauma to your sister, and now you've had me stalked by a stranger. When does it end?" "It ends when you stop being selfish and remember that you have responsibilities." That word, selfish, hit something deep. Because isn't that what I'd been told my whole childhood? That I was selfish for wanting love, for wanting safety, for taking up space in a family that never wanted me? I'm selfish? I turned to face her. For wanting a wife who doesn't use my deepest wounds against me? For wanting to abandon your children because your feelings got hurt? The way she said it, so dismissive, so cold, reminded me exactly of my mother. That same tone when she'd tell me I was overreacting, being too sensitive, making mountains out of molehills. My feelings got hurt? I could hear my voice rising. You told me I should have died. You mocked me crying about childhood abuse. You turned my pain into gossip. And now you've hired someone to follow me around like I'm a criminal. I hired someone to protect my interests because my husband won't talk to me about what he's planning for our family. Maybe because every time I try to talk to you, you find new ways to betray me." She was quiet for a moment, and I thought maybe, she was finally hearing me. But then she pulled out her phone. "I have pictures," she said quietly. "Pictures of what?" "Of you. With her." My blood went cold. "With who?" She swiped to a photo and held up the phone. It was me, standing outside the coffee shop near my office, talking to Sarah from accounting. Sarah, who I've worked with for 3 years. Sarah, who's married with 2 kids and asked me about mine. "This was last Thursday," my wife said. Having what looked like a very intimate conversation. I grabbed the phone to look closer. In the photo, Sarah has her hand on my arm, which I remember now, because she'd been telling me about her son's soccer injury and had reached out in that instinctive way people do when they're expressing sympathy. "Are you insane?" I said. "That's Sarah from work. She was telling me about her kid. Very touching. And this one?" She swiped to another photo. Me and Sarah walking out of a restaurant. Which was actually me and Sarah and 6 other coworkers leaving our monthly team lunch, but the photo was cropped to show just us. "Team lunch," I said. There were 8 of us there. Convenient story. I stared at my wife, really looked at her, and realized I was seeing someone I didn't recognize at all. This paranoid, manipulative stranger who was twisting innocent interactions into evidence of infidelity. "You actually think I'm cheating," I said slowly. "I think you're looking for excuses to leave, and maybe you've found one that makes you feel better about abandoning your family." "I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm trying to protect myself from someone who keeps finding new ways to hurt me." "By running off with your coworker?" "By getting away from someone who hires private investigators to stalk me and then accuses me of affairs based on cropped photos." She put her phone away and looked at me with something that might have been pity. "You know what I think? I think you want to be the victim so badly that you're sabotaging everything good in your life. Just like you probably did as a kid." The words hit me like a slap, because she was using my own story against me again, taking the things I'd told her about my childhood, about how I'd been made to feel like everything was my fault, and weaponizing them in this new context. "Get out," I said quietly. "What?" "Get out. Of this room. I can't look at you right now." She stood up, but instead of leaving, she stepped closer. "This is my house too. I'm not going anywhere. And neither are you. If you care at all about those kids upstairs, don't you dare use them against me. I'm not using them against you. I'm reminding you that they exist. That they need their father to be stronger than his childhood trauma. That they need parents who work through problems instead of running away." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her that this wasn't about running away, that this was about survival. That staying in a relationship where someone systematically breaks down your trust and then gaslights you about it wasn't strength, it was self-destruction. Instead, I walked upstairs to the spare room and locked the door. I've been there for 4 days now. She brings the kids up to say goodnight, and I try to act normal for them, but I can see the confusion in their eyes. Yesterday, my daughter asked me why I don't sleep in the big bed with mommy anymore. I told her daddy just needed some space to think about grown-up things, but the lie felt heavy in my mouth. I keep thinking about those photos, not because I believe there's anything inappropriate about them, but because of what they represent. My wife hired someone to follow me, to document my daily life, to build a case against me based on deliberately misleading evidence. The woman I married, or thought I married, would never have done that. Which means either she's changed completely, or I never really knew her at all. I've been wondering, how long has she been this person? Was she always capable of this kind of manipulation, and I just never saw it? Or did something about my vulnerability, my openness about my past, trigger something in her that turned love into contempt? The private investigator thing keeps eating at me. Because it means for weeks, while I was agonizing over whether to try to save this marriage, she was already treating me like an enemy. Building a case, gathering ammunition. I called Margaret yesterday. Told her about the pie, about the photos, about the accusations. She was quiet for a long time after I finished. "Document everything," she finally said. "And be very careful. Someone who's willing to hire a private investigator to spy on their own husband might be willing to do other things to protect what they see as their interests." "What do you mean?" "I mean, don't be alone with her if you can help it. Don't put yourself in positions where it's your word against hers, and start thinking about what story she might be building to use against you if this goes to court." That conversation terrified me more than anything else so far. Because it made me realize that while I've been mourning the death of my marriage, she's been preparing for war. I don't know what happens next. I can't keep living in the spare room indefinitely. The kids are starting to ask more questions, and my wife seems to think that if she just waits me out, I'll eventually cave and pretend none of this happened. But I can't unknow what I know now. I can't unfeel what it's like to discover that the person you trust most in the world has been treating you like a threat to be managed instead of a partner to be loved. The worst part is, I still catch myself missing her sometimes. Missing the woman I thought she was. Missing the life I thought we had. But that woman, that life, I'm starting to think they were never real to begin with.